Hello and welcome to Stone Glade Farm. I'm starting a video cast at the same time as the podcast, so head over to YouTube if you want to see what's going on visually. So I'm taking a walk through our woods now, and the first place we're going to stop is part of the upper vale. Water flows across the trail here when it rains and goes down into this little area that Mama Dory created. And I've decided we've got liriope in another section of the woods, and I'm going to probably fill this place up with liriope. I did do one little movement, little plug, and I'm going to just keep moving it, I think, this spring. The woods are glorious right now, and what's happening is daffodils. Oh my, the daffodils. Some of the ones I'm observing were planted, I guess, in places that were just too dark, too shadowy. So here's the mouth of the lower vale. This is the pathway that water takes across the property. It goes from east to west and then meets the creek, Overall Creek. And they lined it with these beautiful stones. It's just gorgeous. And of course we're getting more and more water nowadays because the rains are heavier than they used to be. But this beautiful landscape is chock-a-block with limbs from trees that have come down, but also stone. There's 3 little stone bridges crossing it, and it was completely obscured when I moved here. You couldn't tell where it ran or what it was because the honeysuckle had completely filled it in. There's one of my markers. And now we're approaching the daffodil glade. And oh my word, the miniature daffodils come up first. I didn't know that they would do that. I didn't plant these. I had miniatures at my old house, Sundog Manor. But my word, these little guys came up, and they are brilliant, brilliant yellow and orange, just a touch of orange, deep color. And then the regular size daffodils start coming up, and she's planted at least 3 different kinds. The beautiful giant yellow ones, the paper whites, and then my favorites, the ones that are white, smaller and white with an orange center. They're just precious. So cheerful, I can't stand it. So here's the stone walkway. My sister-in-law, Mel, knew that the stone walkway was here, but she couldn't quite tell me where it was. She's like, I know it's around here somewhere. So I uncovered it by accident a couple years ago, and it's just been a delight. It's so much fun. And I can't wait for little nieces and nephews to come out here and just run up and down the stones, you know, leaping from one to another. It's just fantastic. So this is the approach to the creek. One of the approaches. When you get to the end of the stone walkway, you're looking down at where the access is to the wedding rock. That's where my husband and I got married. And the water right now is the most glorious teal. I love it so much. And the creek is just absolutely stunning. In the afternoon with the light on it, unbelievably beautiful. Here's the fire trail. This is the walkway down to the fire pit. from the deck, sunset deck. And one of the fun things I've been working on is the creekside trail, which is on the other side of this slope. So when you get to the deck, you see the floodplain, and there was a lot of brush growing along the creek, and some of it's still there because we need it to hold the slope. So there's our fishing hole and swimming hole. We understand it was a famous destination back before the advent of swimming pools. So I got the rake out and the clippers, and I cut down brush and raked out leaves, and now we have the creekside trail where we can walk along and keep an eye on what's going on in the creek. It will run around the alongside where the goats will go, where we're going to have a small pasture in the floodplain, which is what we're looking at right now. But we also have right now forsythia blooming. I was going to say something else, and then I saw the forsythia. I mean, what else can you talk about when there's flowers like this blooming? This forsythia ramble has just gone on for years, and it just sends out canes and spreads and sends out more canes and spreads. I think they just hit the ground and like grow roots. And it looks like there is trumpet vine growing on it too, which is really nice because trumpet vine feeds hummingbirds. Just beautiful little delicate yellow flowers. Of course, the cane is growing here also, and I'm not going to do anything to the cane unless it absolutely gets in the way. There's our target down there for archery. Another great heap of cut brush, the two giant boulders. But we also have up here daffodils. This was I think this was the first daffodil bed that I uncovered. The brush keeps coming back. I have to get in there again and cut the brush down. That's just an ongoing thing. But in the last year or so, I have also cut down the brush on this hillside above the floodplain, and now there's daffodils all over the place here. Is that not stunning? And it just makes me so happy. It makes me so happy to see these flowers getting another chance to grow. They're not native, but they're also not invasive. They are exotic, and they're lovely. Turn around and get a look at them from this angle. Also have to pick up the camera. So we're just having a gorgeous spring. And I'm looking forward to when soon I transplanted two Coosa dogwoods out of my square spiral garden, and I'm waiting to see if they survived, because one of them in particular I told you about had lost most of its root structure. That's very hard. Oh, here's a fun thing. Giant privet tree. I cut all the way around it. It had a very thick trunk. It was actually 3 together, all growing in one small space. And then in a storm, it finally fell. I could not get it to go down, but it did finally fall with the help of a great big windstorm and rainstorm. The hedge down here that I've established recently, the privet has not started to grow back yet, which I'm kind of surprised at. But the cane is doing nicely. So, okay, that's That's a honeysuckle vine right there. Honeysuckle vine. And this is the privet. Oh, okay. I was wrong. Look at that. Look at that. The privet is starting to grow back right here. That's honeysuckle again. The cane is doing nicely. Most of these trunks had very few branches on them, and look at that. I was down here earlier and I did not even notice. Yeah, so the great big privet hedge down here is a go. I didn't think that cutting these down was going to hurt them. This stuff is so hard to kill. Yeah, there's another one. This great big guy. Now this guy's split, so he may not survive, but I'll bet you anything that most of these guys come back. And he's kind of sticking out over the edge anyway, so he might have to get cut back further. The trail down here still has a lot of vines on it that I'm going to need to pull up, and it also has cane. Here's one of the privet that I had been worried about. It's just gigantic. Look at the size of that. It's at least 3 inches across. So we don't have any branches on these guys yet, but they seem very flexible. And there's another honeysuckle vine. The vines I don't mind. They are not nearly as invasive as the shrubs. But yeah, the Creekside Trail still needs some cleanup. It's the canes that we had to cut. They are very hardy, and one of them went through Bluebear's shoe. But this is my favorite thing to do in the morning now, is to come down to the corner of our property. That's what that pink line ribbon there denotes. And there's a stone down there. Do you see? Close to the water. And when it floods, he gets inundated. And you can see where the leaves are plastered against the edges of the trees. That was the last flood that we had. I don't know that I'm going to cut down much of the privet down here because it's going to hold the slope. And then here's our Creekside Trail again with the beautiful, satiny, smooth, gorgeous crepe myrtle. I love the variegated color on the crepe myrtle trunks. And something else that's coming up now is another exotic invasive that's edible. This is the garlic mustard. It's just starting to come up. It is literally a mustard green with a lovely garlicky taste. But guys, I'm so proud of this trail now. So we are walking along the Creekside Trail. Big rock to step over, which is just, you know, I guess I'm part goat or something. I think that's hilarious. Yay, climb the little rock. There's more garlic mustard down at the bottom of the trees. Right there. I'm going to collect that before long. Last year I made the mistake of waiting too long. More honeysuckle growing up the fence. That'll be really pretty and it'll smell nice. And it feeds the bees. Here's some more. The vine again, I mean the vine is exotic, but it doesn't take over the world and choke everything out like the shrub does. Here we go. Here's the lower access, the access to the creek from the floodplain, where the deer cross a lot. This is the ford where the deer cross. So it was very pleasant down here yesterday, working on clearing out the trail, just listening to the water. But yesterday this was all a tangle of brush, which is now pushed off to the side. Hopefully feed the plants that are going to hold the slope. I found there is a, what do you call it? The greens of the surprise lily. So there's at least one surprise lily planted down here, so we'll get to see that this year, and it's getting a lot more sunlight now. So it will hopefully produce some really pretty pink flowers later in the summer. So now we are below the forsythia that I was showing you earlier. It's up on the top of this slope. There it is. And there's all those beautiful daffodils and our target. And there's our deck and the ledge over the creek. It's kind of hard to see behind the brush right now. But it's just, this is the best time of the year, I swear. The end of winter in the south, in Tennessee here. The end of winter is spring in other countries and other areas. Indiana is, I think, about 3 weeks behind. I grew up in Indiana, central Indiana, and it's, I think, 3 weeks behind or 4 weeks behind the seasons here in Tennessee. So there, we're going to finish up with a picture of the creek, the swimming hole. There's a gigantic turtle that lives there. He's very scary, but we love him anyway. I hope that you have had a wonderful time since our last podcast. I hope that you have done something that makes you feel like you're accomplished, and I hope that you are well. Until next time.